Hey everybody, this is Jeffrey Jansen. I wanted to go live. Let's see if I can my camera. Oh, okay, it's gonna keep out that one. All right, the reason why I'm gonna go live today is actually, believe it or not, I wanted to give my 2 cents on the Doctor Who season finale. I've been seeing a lot of people try to sit there and play a game to where they don't like Doctor Who, they don't like how the ending have out. So, real quick, I may give out spoilers, so you want to be very careful on that. But I am going to give my 2 cents, and here's just it. I liked it, and I know a lot of people are giving a negative opinion on it. However, if you've been paying attention, I've been watching Doctor Who. It's something my grandpa and I used to watch years ago. And everything you do, believe it or not, they're actually keeping with Cantor. They're keeping with the storyline. And I know people are going to say, "What are you talking about?" All right, so we have the master and the doctor, and the master goes and destroys Gallifrey. I get all that, okay, but let's not forget one thing that people are forgetting to add on. Razalon was kicked off of Gallifrey. Okay, the last Doctor. Okay, not Jodie Whittaker, but the last Doctor, Peter Capaldi. He actually basically, when he got out through his time dilation and everything else, he basically said they told him get off the planet, and it shows Razlon leaving. Okay, so first off, Razlon's not there. The Omega and stuff, they have not made anything new with all that. The Omegas, they're everlasting, and so they didn't address the a lot of crucial pieces that all they did was the timeless child. Okay, so my opinion on this one is this. All right, Doctor Who can be the timeless child until they want to be. Okay, that doesn't make them an endless being. Okay, and if the timeless child came to Gallifrey and they were on Gallifrey before anybody else, technically Doctor Who is the one who created Gallifrey. Okay, so it doesn't matter technically if it's a planet or not. He just thought it was beautiful, all the technology and everything else, and the Time Lords. So technically, if the Doctor is the first Time Lord, yes, they can be, he or she or whatever it is at the time can be destroyed. Yes, they may have experimented on the Doctor and they don't remember, being the beginning of time. But if it's the timeless child and everybody's making this big deal about how it ruined Cantor, it actually didn't ruin Cantor. And my theory to that is this: the Doctor has been the president of Gallifrey. He's been in command. He's had so many different roles in Gallifrey. Okay, and yes, he does keep coming back, but in each one of it says something where there's something more. There's something always missing. Okay, and seriously, when you watch these all the way back until the very first one that they made, something was always missing. Something was there. So if you actually take yourself out of this particular timeline and add it to where the timeless child came from, it can be a whole nother story within Cantor, meaning, okay, why is he taking so much love to the humans? It's never really explained why he loves the humans so much. Billions and billions, if not trillions, of other species, yet the Doctor has always taken a liking to human beings. Okay? Gallifrey is not Earth, but the Doctor likes to go back to Earth. The Doctor has been, has been imprisoned on Earth, and I mean, you name it, it keeps always coming back to Earth. You're so worried about Gallifrey that you're forgetting that there was a time war that destroyed everybody, yet we were able to bring it back. They were able to put it into a time lock. So technically, if you think that putting it in a time lock, just because of a time lock, you can always do different things with time. You can turn it around. What they're trying to get at is some more meat and potatoes of the story, not just, oh, let's keep making the same stories over and over. They're trying to expand now and go on to the next dimension. In other words, they're having us as the audience, okay, basically evolve. And we have to evolve by understanding that, okay, so Gallifrey can be anything. But technically the Doctor still is what created it. Okay, Raslan, you've got the Alpha, the Omegas, you've got all these different creatures and beings. You have humanoids, you have, 2D, 3D. These are all different characters. You got that Judge of Dune. You got the Weeping Angels. But what they're doing is they're actually expanding now our knowledge of what's going on. And I like it because it's not the same old, same old. It's keeping with the same story, but now adding the next level. That's why I'm seeing it. Am I right? I don't know. But if you add, since the Doctor is the timeless child, okay, and they did experiment on the Doctor to create, the Time Lords and everything else. Now, instead of asking yourself, oh my God, they're taking away, why don't you ask yourself, where'd the Doctor come from? If not Gallifrey. And since Gallifrey basically is created, and they became Time Lords because of the Doctor's energy, because of the Doctor's endless timelines. That doesn't mean the Doctor's not endless. It just means there's a story arc now. It means now all of a sudden there could be, like I said before, they've already had this in there. If you think about it, there's other dimensions, other portals, other times. So what's the big deal about now? All of a sudden, like, oh my gosh, there's only 13. No, there's 12 and then 13. You've got to keep the story going. Yes, for the Doctor on this particular timeline had, 12 incarnations. Now the last one, they had 12, and they got a whole bunch more. But that doesn't mean, that means they all can get it if they want it, and they can all be endless. But now here's just it. The Time Lords are not the Time Lords. The Time Lords have taken and stolen technology by doing research on the Doctor, granted. But where does the Doctor come from now? Now all of a sudden that means there's beings. Now think about it. There's always been beings that were more important than the Time Lords, and we've seen that before, okay? You can go all the way back, and you can see different things from energy beings that we never see again to when the little box squares, I forgot what it's called, and don't hold me to it. But remember, there's a whole other culture out there that's even more powerful than Time Lords. So, but the problem is, the Time Lords are not as powerful as them. That doesn't mean the Doctor's not as powerful as them, because the Doctor doesn't come from Gallifrey. And there's been at least 15 different examples to where there's been other cultures, there's been other planets, there's been other, you know, enemies or other beings more powerful than the Time Lords. They're just not in, they're out of sight and out of mind. Why? Because they don't need to show themselves. Um, I was watching an episode of the old Star Trek the other day. Yeah, I'm a big nerd, I admit it. So, and it was the one where they went to a planet that was a very peaceful planet, and the Klingons and the American, or the Klingons, the Klingons and the humans were at war, and the war was going on, and the people kept saying, "We will not have this," and they stopped the entire war, but they thought they were just a simple culture. They weren't. They just turned to pure energy and they disappeared, and they stopped the entire war. They did not let each other kill each other. That to me kind of is a symbol of what's going on right now with the Time Lords. Okay. Now, I know not many people are going to watch this, but I have seen a lot of hate and a lot of hostility. But I'm actually liking where this is going, because people have been wrapped up in their little box. They got so used to what was going on with the Doctor and what was going on around, they forgot to look at that it has to keep expanding. It's got to keep pulling outside the bounds. And the only way to do that is you got to show that there's something beyond Gallifrey. Gallifrey is just a planet. The Time Lords had to come from somewhere, okay? So all they did was they made the Time Lords have a purpose. They made the Time Lords actually come from something, which is the Doctor. But here's just it. We still don't know who the Doctor is. That is key. They never said who the Doctor is. They never gave a name. They never gave how many life cycles it's going to have. All they said was the Doctor is the timeless child. The timeless child meaning it had to come from somewhere. So now we have finally the last bit of where did the Time Lords come from? Great. But the Doctor is what created Time Lords. So now where does the Doctor come from? Where do the Time Lords, where does this energy come from that they all have, since they figured it all out? But where? What plane? What dimension? Now we're going into a more, instead of a two-dimensional, a three-dimensional. It's causing you to think outside your box now. And the people that are not thinking outside the box with Doctor Who are the same ones that are complaining like, oh, they ruined it. They didn't ruin it. They expanded on it. And if they get the next series right, okay, now I know the Janoon just put the Doctor in prison for life, and basically we just found out the Doctor, now think about that too. They just put the Doctor in prison for life, yet now we just found out the Doctor is infinite. So that means the Doctor is not infinite, does have a life. Because if the Janoon put her and him, or, Jodie Whittaker in a prison for life, that means that there is an ending point to the particular lives, to the regeneration, stuff like that. Okay? So what we need to do now is expand on that and find out where it goes. I'm anxious to see where they're going to go with this before I say it's not cancer, because I believe this is still within cancer. I believe that every single doctor is all in. Go back to every one of them. There's been areas where they just don't understand stuff or they can't think about it, but they do the best of their ability and they just keep going forward. But there's still questions they can't answer, and it has nothing to do with the Time Lords. Okay, and I remember when they were doing with Matt or with David Tennant, they will always show his mom, or who they say is his mom. We haven't got that one down yet either. So technically, it's not his mom or it's not the doctor's mom, because they came after the doctor, not before. They got all their information from the doctor, not before. The closest thing to family the doctor will have is the young lady who discovered and did all the experiments on him. That would be the closest thing. Okay? But now you got to ask yourself this: if there was just one time, or if it's doctor and then one late, where did the guys come from? Where did all the people start coming from? That means they had to take them from different planets to create the Time Lords. Okay? So the Time Lord is just a society. That's all it is. That means there's something older. If there's something older, that means you could go farther into it. It's kind of like when Star Trek first came out, right? They went back, they did Star Trek. Then they did Star Trek. The Next Generation, which keeps pushing forward. Then they went back and they did Enterprise, and then they went to Discovery. Now they're doing Picard, but they're all going all over this timeline. Doctor Who's the same way. The only difference is they've always hinted at different things going on, but now it's up to us to watch to find out what is going on. Now, if you read some of the books and you listen to some of the audio tapes and recordings, it's staying within Cantor. So I'm going to have to disagree with all those people out there saying it's not Cantor, because it is. I actually believe we are in the Cantor, but the thing about it is, because they're going outside of Gallifrey, they had their mindset that Gallifrey was the final. No, Gallifrey was actually the beginning of this cycle's journey. When I say this cycle, I'm talking about going all the way back when Doctor Who first began, and you start from the first Doctor. Okay? But even that Doctor knew that there was life cycles before his. And it's even in every single Doctor that's been there has made this point that there's been other things they can't explain. Now those are getting explained. Now people are getting mad saying it's not Cantor. It's within Cantor. Yes, it is. Doesn't mean the Doctor is infinite. It just means he's the timeless child. She's the timeless child. Doesn't matter if your girl got, yes, it showed all these different, but it's showing this galaxy, this, time and space. This time and space right here, those are all the creeds and the cultures and everything else. The Doctor can regenerate into anything or anybody. But that doesn't mean the Doctor was always a humanoid or with two hearts. That's just the Time Lords. The Doctor is something bigger. And that's what we're going to find out. And that's the reason why I still think we're within Cantor. And I understand there's a lot of people who will disagree with me on that. And they're just mad. But actually, this is the first time I've seen where the Doctor Who episodes are actually getting out of their little bubble they've been in, the little square they've been in. And they're now venturing out to go and see more about it. So that is my 2 cents on the Doctor Who. I believe it's still within Cantor. I believe they're doing a great job right now. Yes, there's a few things that are kind of confusing, like the Master and how the Master keeps coming about also. Why is it just the Doctor and the Master? Here's a good question. Why did Gallifrey get destroyed by the Master? I mean, seriously, how can the Master destroy all of Gallifrey when they're more powerful than the Master? How does the Master keep getting all these incarnations? Now, granted, if you go all the way back to the Omega, the Master steals lives from the Omega. But the Masters has just as many regenerations as the Doctor. And now all of a sudden the Master's mad because it turns out the Doctor's the main person, not him or her or whatever you want to call him. But these things have to be explained now. But remember this, though. Rassilon is not on the planet when it's destroyed. Rassilon's not even there. So you got to start asking yourself, Rassilon and the Omega are the ones that created the Time Lords. But now we're finding out they created it through the Doctor. Because the Doctor is the timeless child. So, with all of its companions and where it's going and everything else, I think they're on the right track. I can actually see I don't know what's coming down the pipeline, but I actually see it's good things. So if we sit there and bash them and hate them, and that means we're not opening up our minds. And the thing about Doctor Who is it gets us to expand our minds. And that's what I like about it. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Yes, be nice. I mean, you can say whatever you want. It's your opinion. This is just my opinion. I think what they did was they opened up a brand new door, a brand new adventures that can go on, and they can start now pushing the boundaries again. When before I think they were kind of locked in, but now they get to push the boundaries again with this whole new. How many cycles of the Doctor are there? How many doctors out there have there been? Okay, why is it that everybody's so scared of the Doctor? Is the Doctor good in one reality and bad in another? There's all these other questions that can come about now, and we can ask ourselves. We have to see where it's going to go. Remember, Gallifrey is just a planet. Time Lords are just a species. That's it. That doesn't mean that they're the first. It doesn't mean they're the last. It doesn't mean they're the best. It doesn't mean anything other than they made this particular galaxy, this particular universe theirs. They made it to where they get to control everything. Great. That's what most dictatorships do anyway. But now that the Doctor comes from somebody, not the Time Lords, which makes a lot of sense. Now all of a sudden we get to find out where the Doctor comes from. And I think it's the first time we've actually had real truth into the whole thing. Okay? Remember, wherever the Doctor's at, it's still the Doctor. Whoever the Doctor is, it's the first Time Lord. They called themselves Time Lords. Not because they are Time Lords. Okay. That's my 2 cents, everybody. Hope you have a great day. Talk with everybody soon.